And this is a pair and share. I have both of them up there. I think I might do them one at a time. So this is a pair and share on how do we communicate that I am here for you no matter what to our kids or to friends. That doesn't have to be kids. How do we communicate verbally and non-verbally that I'm here for you no matter what? This touches into, was that you that asked me about, or no, the person behind you? It was you. About how do you build capacity, or I feel like there's a lot of people in my life that wouldn't have an answer if I asked them this question. But think about it, chat with your neighbor. I'll give you maybe 4 or 5 minutes and then I'll call you back. We're doing the first one. How do we communicate that I'm here for you no matter what? Verbally, non-verbally. Mm-hmm. Oh, you need to say that. That's powerful. Did you actually get to hear Karen in person? I wish I could have met her. She's amazing. I love that. Absolutely. I'll call us back together in about a minute. Sorry. I'll call us back together in about a minute. How do we communicate? I'm here for you no matter what, verbally, non-verbally. The first one, how do we communicate? Oh, I'm going to switch it and ask people to do nonverbal first. Yeah, let's just all come back together. Sorry, it's afternoon. I'm in food coma. How do we communicate that I'm here for you no matter what? And let's do nonverbal first. By listening. By giving time, by showing up. I like what you said. After you came home from a Purvis training.
Oh, right. Just get down on their eye level. Just kneel down in front of the kids.
Totally.
Part of that is presence. We can show up and not be present.
Yes, ma'am. We can show up and not be present. Emotional connection matters.
By holding and comforting them as they're expressing sadness or anger or other things, other kinds of emotions that would typically be the highest likelihood of leading to rejection, just holding them and comforting them during those moments.
Absolutely. So in difficult moments, showing up and holding, supporting, not rejecting, not being told you have to go to your room. Making eye contact and smiling.
Having gentle eyes.
Gentle eyes. That's from Karen Purvis, right? She's amazing. I wish she were still alive. If you don't know who that is, Karen Purvis, her organization is located at, I believe, Texas Christian University. She's a therapist, psychologist who worked with a lot of kids who were either fostered or adopted, and I think she had adopted kids of her own as well. Looking at when kids don't go through the normal elements of attachment, what can you do to help a child that has been taken from its mother? What can you do to help them go through those experiences so that they can feel seen and heard and more safe?
What did you say her name was?
Karen, Karyn, rather than Karen, and Purvis, I believe it's Purvis. Trauma-informed relational TBRI, trauma. You're right. Yes, say that one again. Trust-based relational intervention. See, between the 6 of us, we have a brain. If you are working with a kid who, I'm really glad you brought it up because she's worth mentioning here. I would sort of love to I actually bought a bunch of her her videos. I'd love to do a conference sometime that was with her books, looking at what she teaches. She's no longer living, but her organization is housed, I believe, at Texas Christian University. And I would say she's done more to help families figure out how to care for kids that haven't attached and were taken from their original attachment source. And her stuff is really, I find it very compelling. She's a really good teacher, and she's done the things she's telling other people, why don't you try this? She's tried herself, which there's no better, right? No better thing than knowing that someone's speaking from experience. Okay, how do we communicate that I'm here for you no matter what verbally?
I love you for who you are and not for what you do or how you behave or don't behave.
I love you for who you are and not what you do or how you behave. The love is deeper than that. Thank you.
I think validating their negative emotions. I don't know, I think Mennonite culture, stuff the negative, you may not be negative, that's wrong, that's sin. But when a child actually, you're angry. Yeah, it's okay to be angry.
Yes.
I just think that's powerful.
And I'll help you get back to help.
Okay, so that it's good to be able to the big strong negative emotions, that validating those emotions rather than telling somebody you can't feel that anymore, and also saying, if the child is dysregulated, I will help you get back to safety. That I'm not abandoning you. I'm not walking away because you're being a meanie. I'm the adult. You're the kid. And you deserve some assistance to properly self-regulate. Though that's not what you would say, but that's what you would do. What else? ¿Qué más?
We start our day by planning what's going to happen for the day, who's going to be where, what everybody's role is,
Nice.
everything we got to accomplish. We just kind of plan out our day every morning,
Nice.
and then everybody knows where they got to be when.
Yes. So you plan out your day, what's happening and when, who's going where, so that people don't have sort of broken expectations, or I thought it was going to be this and it ended up being that and now I'm mad. So telling people ahead what to expect. Somebody over here?
You're not too much for me.
Yes, you're not too much for me. How many people in this room have either been told you're too much or you're not enough? These are such problematic messages for kids. It's not helpful. How does a child, okay, let's shift to the next question. How does a child learn that their parent is fully trustworthy? Again, think about verbal and nonverbal. I'll give you a couple minutes again, and then, so the rest of the day will be in and out of conversation. I want to say, I know I dumped a lot of material on you the first hours that we were together. Not all of that information is on your sheets. If you want all the information, email Joanne, and I will see that she has a PDF copy of the slides that she can share with you. Because it's a lot of material, and I know I ran out of energy, like I ran out of time trying to copy and paste from the slides to the Word, from the slide to the Word, so that's partly why you don't have it all. This is a new talk for me. This is a new 5-hour learning experience, so I'm also figuring out as I go. All right, I set the question back to you. How does a child learn that his parent is fully, or their parent is fully trustworthy, verbal and nonverbal? And I'm listening into these people on the front row. I'm out of tape.
A little louder way. Not fair.
Thank you for my sensitive sound man back there. Awesome. How does a child learn that their parent is fully trustworthy? Maybe that's an overstatement, but non-verbally first and then verbally. What'd you hear? What'd you say?
Place where it's most striking to me is when my two oldest daughters are doing something wrong to each other, and they trust me to mediate, and instead of feeling like they need to retaliate on their own, just treating them both fairly and taking care of the issue, whoever is doing wrong. That's where I feel the trust the most, is him treating them consistently and fairly.
Yes.
In that kind of thing. And of course, we're trying to train them, bring those things to us instead of retaliating and
Absolutely.
whatever. And so just that whole process is where I feel that the most.
Well spoken. So I heard consistency, and in your household, helping your daughters when there is a rupture, when something's gone wrong. Can they include you to help them figure that out? And your hope is over the years that they will begin to be able to do that for themselves. But it starts, right, behaviorally, it starts with good examples. It's well said. Okay, Moss.
I think not being reactionary when they come to us.
Not being reactionary when they come to us, not blowing up with them or because of them.
The flip side to that is then also, but still engaging
Yes,
and not just meeting that with distance.
yes. So when your kid does turn to you, not overreacting, but also not underreacting, as if it's nothing at all and I don't have time. This is not my work. You just go take care of yourself. Yeah, absolutely true. So there's boundaries, there's parentheses within which these questions can be answered. One more, two more.
Easy to think of the few things you shouldn't do. Don't do the sighing or the eye rolling.
Right.
Those are focusing on the negatives.
That's right.
But smiling or nodding.
Yes.
As they're sharing their.
Right. So actually, I think eye rolling is kind of, even to our kids, it's a little bit disrespectful, right? So not sending negative messages and trying to be, as much as possible, positively engaged. Eye contact, showing up with presence, not being distracted, and caring about them, which means eye rolling even when you feel like you might want to do it. It's not so helpful. And they learn to do it and then turn around and do it to their parents. So it's a good one not to do. How about verbally? How does a child learn that their parent is fully trustworthy verbally?
By the way we treat our spouse.
By the way we treat our spouse. Indeed.
Acknowledging when we mess up.
Acknowledging when we mess up. Absolutely. The willingness to acknowledge rupture and working at repair. And this was a couple years ago. I don't know what was going on with me, but I had a couple of very intense conversations at the end of the week, and I try pretty hard not to be a really, emphatic force. I try to be even, and I didn't feel like I was very even in either of those conversations. And Monday morning, the job was to get on my phone and call Tracy and call Laurie and say, hey, did I do harm to you? I felt like I came on really strong. In both cases, they were fine with it. But the willingness to actually have that category in my head, right? That even when I do my very best, sometimes I still can do harm. And so instead of being perfectionistic and pretending that I don't ever do anything wrong, which is never the case for any of us, being upfront and honest, and it's a kind of vulnerability, right? To ask your kid for forgiveness or to say, hey, I think I missed. Yeah, these are all good. Any more comments? Following through on our word. Yep. If you said you were going to be there. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question, and you don't have to tackle this whether you want to, but you mentioned presence and like parents being present for their kids. And I'm not a parent, but I see lots of parents dealing with constant interruptions. So do you have advice on how to balance that thing of being available for them, but not like just getting completely swamped and overwhelmed by all the interruptions?
What say you? How do you hold the line? What does it mean to be present when our lives are really busy and there can be lots of distractions?
I think one thing we can do is just establish healthy rhythms. So we're busy in the middle of work and they need something, say, can you come here, I'll get you a hug, and then I'm gonna write this down and we'll talk about it right after supper.
So have a plan of how to deal with it.
And then at supper time, everyone puts their
That's
phones
right.
away. And so
Yep.
just because now it's us.
There you go. Very good.
Well, I think as adults, you have to prioritize as well. You know, your children, they're number one always.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you have a job and everything, you gotta pay bills, but at some point you do have to prioritize your busy lifestyle versus being a parent.
Right. So are you willing to, it's kind of a hard decision, right? To say my kids are more important than the other things, even than my job. And if there's a moment where I really need to be there, I'm going to go do that. And sometimes it's okay to put things off and say, I hear you, I want to work on this with you. Can we do that in 2 hours? Will you be okay?
With my children and now my grandchildren, I have found that I can say, and just give them, I have this time I'm going to spend with you, and that very early on, they understand that I'm fully present. Then I can say, but now it's you time.
Right.
And I'm going to be here. And I think that there's almost a teaching and training that has to go with that.
Yeah.
But I think children can learn to feel secure.
Yeah, I think so too.
When it comes to visit me, they can learn that they don't have to be interrupting all the time.
Right. That you're setting a couple boundaries, you're indicating up front when there is time where you're all in. I'm here and we'll do, let's color, whatever. But then also being able to say, there are times like in order for us to eat, I need to work in the kitchen. And so please stay with the train and in an hour we'll have something to eat. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you lose your drink. One more?
Mothers especially need breaks sometimes.
Mothers need breaks.
For fathers to get away to their job.
Yes.
I admire their wives sometimes when I can't handle it for half a day even.
Right. So recognizing that moms need breaks too. I have one friend that this was probably about 20 years ago. Her husband was a very busy lawyer, and he put in, I think he'd go into work at 6 and he'd come home at 6. And when he walked in the door, he would put down his briefcase and pick up a kid. And she just said how precious that was to her, because she'd just been home all day with the toddlers, and like she needed a shower and a walk. And I loved that that they had figured that out as a couple, that he was sensitive in that way. It's really easy. Another couple friends that I lived with when I was working with gang-affiliated youth in San Francisco, when they first married and they had 4 kids really rapidly, and I would come for a visit and he'd come home from work and go instantaneously onto his phone. And there she is, she's been with 4 little ones. and it changed, and he did some of his own work, and he recognized, well, she's just been with the kids all day. It's not like it's not work, right? It's not work she's getting paid for. And I was very grateful when he made that discovery, because 4 kids under the age of 7 is a lot. Okay, let's see what comes next. All right. Please stand with me. Turn off the cameras. Why did I put this in here? Oh, I don't know why the word is joint. Anyway, it's a wiggle. Start with your hands and vigorously shake your wrists, and your forearms and your shoulders, and kick one leg at a time to throw off physical tension. You're done. Right? I'm awake again. There he goes. I know, right? I'm sorry. Okay, if you don't know about aversive childhood experiences, I felt like I needed at least to drop in a note. And again, I'm sorry, my slide's running off there a little bit, but you can read it anyway. So in the 1980s, 2 different doctors working in 2 different places in California were noticing these trends that it is the same. Oh, you can see from there. Brilliant. Okay. Back in there, it's slightly, but it doesn't matter. I know the slides. So these 2 different guys, and then they finally got together when they realized that they were finding the same effects. So one doc was running a weight loss study, and people were making a lot of progress, and a bunch of people from the progress group would suddenly drop out and not ever come back again. I mean, they come back in for physicals, but not for that program. And he started to ask questions, and what he discovered was that a lot of those people had been sexually abused, and they didn't want to be too small because they didn't want someone to approach them and want to date them because their body size was nicer. And then he looked deeper. And we'll look at the physical, we'll look at sort of the long-term impact as adults. So he identified 3 kinds of abuse, and there's more than that, but that's what this study did. Physical, sexual, and can't see it. Emotional, thank you. And then neglect, 2 different kinds of neglect. And then household dysfunction, things that go wrong, like a parent is mentally ill, a parent goes to jail, excuse me. Yeah, I can't read my own thing. Mother treated violently. What's the substance abuse and divorce. What they saw in people who were adults who had faced, what they found is that if you can check off 4 of these elements on that first slide, or that first box, you were highly likely to struggle at school, and as adults, you often were overweight, you often had difficulty keeping a job, you often used drugs and alcohol, you often were depressed, you often were, I don't know if suicidal's up there, but we'll see it in the next slide. Heart issues, lung issues, brain issues. This was actually a huge deal. This was something like Bowlby's recognition that babies don't attach to their moms because of the milk. They attach to moms because they're emotionally engaged and regulated. Nobody had ever bothered to look at data like this before, and it continues to stand across cultures around the whole world. You can do a Google, if you go to Google Scholar and search for aversive childhood experiences, thousands of papers come up. These are robust effects that are known around the world. And so here, 4 or more ACEs increase your risk of heart disease, cancer, chronic lower respiratory disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and so on. So it's like you're 2.1 times more likely to have heart disease. You're 4.9 times more likely to have Alzheimer's than if you don't have 4 ACEs, aversive childhood experiences, in your past. And then health outcomes. I actually think this is one of the most startling slides that's most informative. 41% of the people who use drugs had 4 or more aversive childhood experiences. 40% of people that are depressed, 30% anxiety, 28% alcohol user, that's a problem, cancer, obesity, diabetes. And it's not on here, but I'm pretty sure that suicides in America in adults are attributed, I think they say 75% of the suicides that happen in America are because of the presence of aversive childhood experiences that are not really ever processed and dealt with. It's big. Let me go back here for a second. I didn't put this on the slide, but there's still hope. It's always good to know that there's still hope, because now people have begun to study positive childhood experiences. And what they see is if that you have 4 or more negative and you have 2 or more positive childhood experiences, like there is an adult at home that listens to you, like there's an adult in your community that cares about who you are and asks you how you're doing, there's somebody at school that helps you learn new things. I don't remember all the categories, but these numbers are significantly reduced if somebody is in your corner, somebody is caring, someone is noticing, someone is listening. So it does matter how we are to the people, to the kids and adults that are around us. It matters for us to show up and to be real, not only for our kids, but for the people around us who are struggling with many different things. Tying it all together. So a secure attachment depends upon the caregiver's attunement with the infant's arousal level, the willingness to sense that your baby's not feeling okay and you're responding to whatever their needs are. This goes across, if you ask about how do you behaviorally show something, your visual facial expressions and gestures, your body posture, your level of movement, even smell can be used to get people's attention. The caregiver's voice and the baby's vocalizations begin to synchronize as that child begins to ba, 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 and la, la, la. Those things enhance oxytocin. Those things enhance a sense of connection. It matters what we do a lot. We know right brain develops before left. We also know that the limbic system, which is amygdala and other structures that care about emotion, it myelinates. It gets insulated in the first 18 months of our lives. It matters that we attend to our children's emotions and to their physical needs. Some people have said that the level, if you compare people who have been profoundly sexually abused as children across months and years to kids that have been actively neglected across months and years, that the impact in the nervous system, the likelihood of like the PACES data that you're going to face a lot of illness as an adult, that it's close to the same. Now, I'm not saying it's the same thing to experience sexual abuse and active neglect. However, again, it matters what we do with our kids. It matters how we move towards them. It matters whether or not we get down on their level, whether or not we make eye contact, whether or not we hold them, whether or not, even when they're really mad, we don't run out of the room, we stay with them. It all matters. Our baby brains are set up to help us relate to the most important people in our lives. Our adult brains, bodies, and minds and selves are set up to help develop our children. Children need parents who know how to apply the brake and the gas pedal and how to emotionally regulate. Now then, what about adults? And what about adult attachment? I'm going to look to you guys again. You've heard something about it. I'll give you a couple minutes. Think about it. Talk to your neighbor. How would you define emotional regulation, given what you knew before, given what you know now? How would you define emotional regulation? And part of emotional regulation is recognizing what's happening and then making a decision about what I'm going to do. And that's partially left brain for sure. Other questions, comments? You're right, it is about window of tolerance and whether we can get back there. Somebody else started talking, was that you?
Yeah, it seems like whether you're hypo or hyper tendency type person, you can kind of choose with your will to participate in continuing to push it that direction.
I think so.
And some of it is, I think, learning to choose not to participate in.
Right.
In that, yeah, in dysregulation.
Yeah.
To work the other way.
Correct. One of the things I didn't say when we first looked at the window of tolerance that I'll say now, wouldn't it be nice for our spouse to know what helps us get back in our window when we're out of our window? And our coworkers and our pastors, like these are not necessarily questions or conversations that we have regularly with the other adults around us. But it seems to me that it can be really important, because what do you do if you walk into work and somebody else is dysregulated? How do you help? How do you know how to help? It's challenging.
Can you ask, what do you need from me?
Absolutely. 100% yes. How can I help? Can I help? Absolutely. Okay, this one I'm going to get you to turn to each other and discuss. What are 2 cues that a family member or friend might recognize as signs that you are in your window of tolerance? Let's do them together. 2 cues that your family would recognize that you're leaving your window of tolerance. 2 cues that a family member or friend would recognize as signs, sorry, that you are in your window of tolerance.
Defensive. Oh, the other one. I went to the second one,
That's okay.
and that would be defensive.
Defensive. So for the second question, I would be defensive. What about the first one?
I come home from work on time.
That you come home from work on time. Love it. Thank you for your honesty.
If I'm smiling,
Yes, if you're smiling. If I'm smiling with my face and my eyes. That's one for the second one. If I'm not smiling with my eyes, something's gone terribly wrong. ¿Qué más?
Maybe I can see the bottom of my kitchen sink and it's not full of dishes.
We must be related. That I can see the bottom of my kitchen sink because I've done the dishes. Yes.
Being present and actually present.
Yes. All there. Yes. All there, listening well, speaking with kindness, paying attention. All right, we'll switch to the other one. What are 2 cues that a family member or friend would recognize as signs that you are leaving your window of tolerance? When I was working for crisis intervention back in the day, we would go out on crisis calls where people were a danger to themselves or others, and were trying to figure out how to get help for them. People knew that I had a really bad day. My hair just getting taller. I would run my hands through my hair. They knew. Time for Joy to go home. What else? Yes.
I'm thinking back to a question, to something I think was said earlier. What if a lot of the time we live in hypo or hyper and we think that's normal? We don't even know what is
It's true.
the window of tolerance. How do we help people see when they aren't living in their window of tolerance?
Yeah.
And I think it's also a question of, can we be humble enough to ask family and friends, do I live in a window of tolerance?
There you go. What say you? What might you say, or how might you interact with somebody who is kind of chronically maxed out or shut down? Did you have an answer to your own question? Not really.
Well, one answer I have is I think it comes back to something you've emphasized before, humility and saying, what can I learn about myself?
Yes.
It's an emotional self-awareness to say, I'm sorry, family, I haven't been living in the window of tolerance. I've been operating out of it.
Yes.
Can you help me the times when you sense that and I'm not even aware of it?
Yes. That's very powerful. So self-reflection, which leads to vulnerable conversations or accountable conversations, or both of those things, right? Because you're saying, help me remember when I've slipped, tell me that I've slipped so that I can work at changing that. Yeah. When I teach about trauma and the brain, we talk some about resilience, and which is, bending but not breaking is kind of the most common definition. Senior moment. When I teach about the brain and I talk about resilience. But resilience isn't enough. Self-reflection and a willingness to be vulnerable and accountable. So now we're sliding into what's called the emotional intelligence literature, which is critical. It's not enough to just bounce back, because whatever did happen, did impact you in some significant way. And so how now, what I learned from that, do I need to change my behavior? Should I be checking in with my spouse? Should I be checking in with my students? A willingness to reflect and invite other people into that reflection so that you're not alone with it. And I think that's really relevant right here, right now, to be willing to acknowledge and ask, if I'm way off the rails and I can't see it, please sit me down. And your hope is that as you work at that, eventually you'll be able to do it for yourself. But if you grew up on one end or the other, or flip-flopping back and forth, the window of tolerance may be very, very small. And that's what people say about people who faced really intense trauma, that window is small. And so how can we stretch it so that it's open wider and longer, and I'm less likely to go to one of the extremes? Yes, sir.
So how does that relate to, like, the state of dissociation, which is
Ah.
a protective state?
Yep.
And I frequently go to dorsal vagal shutdown, whatever.
Right.
I don't even realize that I am
Correct.
in some degree of dissociation.
Right. So what happens when we dissociate and really sort of, it's like a part of us submerges? It's a good question, and it's a difficult question.
Because I had a coworker, and he would say, "Chad, you're different today. You're not yourself."
He could sense it,
He would tell me that, and I would say, "Nope, I'm normal."
right?
But he could sense that I'm
You were in a different
some
state.
level of dissociated.
Yeah. Yeah, so what do we do when we're working alongside somebody who dissociates? I think that what I would, if the person seems open and our relationship seems stable and steady, I might ask the question that we just talked about. If you dissociate, if it feels like you shift states, do you want me to tell you? Are there things that I can say that might pull you back? So, and that, it have to be done carefully, right? Because the point is not to shame someone. Dissociation is, it's a coping mechanism that then eventually becomes not very much like coping. So I think I'd have to feel like I had a strong enough foundation with that person to ask those questions. And they can say, I don't know what you're talking about. And then, at least you recognized it. If the person can't recognize it, I think there's limits, a lot of limits to what we can do.
Yeah, my coworker, it's like I was blessed that he was able to
Yeah,
express, "Chad, you're not yourself today.
right?
And what's the matter?" And that's a big warning, though, and I'm not in a very good state.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for offering that.
So he was the brave one. He was the courageous one.
Right. Right. Other questions, comments? What are 2 signs that might show that I'm leaving my window of tolerance? What'd you say?
Go quiet.
Go quiet, so you're not communicating. There was one back here somewhere.
We talked a little bit about kind of the physiological reaction to that, like your heart's beating faster.
Yes.
How they kind of the skills to reset your system.
Yeah. So are you saying that are you saying that someone else might be able to notice that, or?
They might
Yeah.
be able to.
Yeah. Especially like if you're like some people, when they're really, really stretched, they go to like a shallow breathing, and you could actually see it on somebody's chest that their breathing rate has changed, or they're sweating. So yes, there are some biological signs. Maybe not everybody shows that, but that you're right. That's another way to see something might be going wrong. And then what do we do about it? Una más.
When I lose patience with my children.
Thank you. When I lose patience with my children, absolutely. When I lose patience with my coworkers, when I lose patience with my therapist, I am definitely coming out of my window. I'm falling fast. Okay, onward.
So going back.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, as I was trying to define emotional regulation, I would define healthy emotional regulation as you feel an emotion, you don't demonize that, you accept that it's a legitimate response to something that's wrong in the world, especially negative emotion here. And just to use the example of anger, you recognize that as a legitimate warning sign of something wrong, and then you work to fix it. Healthy emotional regulation is doing that. Unhealthy emotional regulation is feeding that and becoming enraged,
Right.
out of control, and so forth.
Right.
One thing that leads me to my question. I often hear this thing of validating emotions, but there's often not the distinction made between that initial flash of emotion that is legitimate and helpful, and with correct emotional regulation can be extremely helpful, versus that feeding of negative emotions to where it gets out of control.
Right.
Often I don't hear those two separated well.
Yeah.
What are the correct terms that we should use to make the distinction between those two parts of emotion, as we think and talk about them in the context of emotional regulation?
Yeah, so you're asking a question about, you can have anger that flashes because something has happened that deserves anger, and how do we talk about that versus an anger that we sink into and it colors everything we see and everything we do? I don't know that I've seen this carefully defined in the literature. The kind of anger that's going to let me sink to the bottom and stew is also going to push me out of my window of tolerance, right? So that's where I would probably go first, is to say, between 1 and 10, how angry are you? How happy are you? What level of tension? Like if I was talking to somebody who was trying to explore the difference, I would say that the difference would be that when we drop into those really intense places, we can't stay in ventral vagal anymore. We're not really going to be able to problem solve. We're not going to be able to actually choose to turn the gain back down, right? We might need somebody to help us do that. I don't know, does that connect to what you're asking?
I think
Okay.
so. I think my primary concern is we often hear this thing about validating emotions as being a very good thing, but then we don't distinguish between that initial flash of emotion that
And
that needs to be handled in a healthy way,
right.
Versus feeding it and
Yep.
becoming a really negative thing in our lives.
Yep.
And often we confuse the two and think that validating the runaway train is what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
I'm trying to understand what's the language we can use to
Sure.
refer to that difference.
Yeah, I would probably go directly to my little charts with all the different words of things that you can feel and test with somebody where are you right now? Are you here or are you there? And staying in a prolonged state of distress, including anger, it's poisoning you, and it will poison the people around you. Yes. Is that a... Yeah, okay.
I wonder, and in answer to that, I wonder if emotion and reaction might be helpful.
Yes.
Emotion is what you're feeling.
Right.
The reaction is what I'm doing
Right. Yep. If you're throwing stuff for half a day, if you throw one plate when something really bad happens versus you destroy all the plates in your house, you're out of balance.
God gave us the ability to feel these emotions.
That's right.
In His image, but it matters what we do.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and I would say I don't ever have this particular conversation with clients. I always hear the opposite, that a big emotion is never acceptable under any circumstances, and they have been asked to stuff every emotion other than I'm fine, really, their entire lives. So I'm working on one extreme end of the you could call it a bell-shaped curve, you know, if you were a scientist once. Thank you. It was a good question. Didn't we see this already? Yes, we did. We're not going to really have to spend. Those are things we've already said. When my friend calls me in a crisis, I can choose to stay with him or her and not get lost in their hypo or hyperarousal, but potentially be a way out. So I would say in my own story that I wasn't really allowed to feel anything at all. So when I got around the feeling, it was absolutely extreme, and it was the worst of the worst of the worst. And something that was done for me was the willingness of the therapist to sit with me even when I'm at my worst and not run away, but also acknowledging that this is not all that you are, Joy. You're not only just rage, or you are not only just extreme confusion. There's more. I already have seen the other parts of you, and I know they're there. So that's the direction that I come from when I teach this material. And she wouldn't get pulled in. My mother would get pulled in. So I couldn't understand why my therapist wouldn't really get upset at me and with me, because that's what I always had lived through. And she was like, well, if I'm upset too, it just gets worse, not better. Attunement and co-regulation. All right, danger and safety detection in the body and the brain. So neuroception is a word that not many of us have heard before unless you sort of study the polyvagal theory, which is that this vagal nerve has a lot to do with how we feel dangerous and how we feel safe. And it's receiving information from all over the body, and it's sending it up to the brain, and it's sending it back down to the body. Neuroception is this sense that our inner system, that we have the capacity to ask this question, am I safe, in safety, or am I in danger? It's running in the background. It's not typically in our consciousness, unless we're under threat a lot, but it shapes and drives the decisions we make and the way we relate to others. It allows us to rest in safety with self and others, and it allows us to recruit enough energy to grab the toddler who's wandering into a busy street. And it also allows us to power down when the crisis is over. And this co-regulation, it's necessary for us to thrive. It's a biological imperative, a need that we have to sustain life, especially when we are very young. As we grow, we add to this ability for self-regulation. But we never lose the need and the longing to be safely connected to others. Co-regulation undergirds our ability to ultimately attach to our caregivers and then to the people that we're close to as adults. So Deb Dana is a therapist, and I did give you a couple references in the very back of your pages, but I also at the end here, you'll see a couple more books. She has spent a lot of time working with people who've been traumatized. She argues that you can reach a point, and I think this came up earlier today, you can reach a point where you no longer have a real honest sense of danger or safety. And so that you might end up going with somebody who's dangerous because how they're behaving towards you feels familiar, but it doesn't mean that it's good. And she says in therapy that she can help people regain their own sense of neuroception, knowing the difference between safe and unsafe.
What was the name of that person?
Deb Dana, and you will see her name and 2 publications on the last slide today. I'm going the wrong way. So I would like us to try a little experiment. I've done this before. It's been really interesting. I'm going to show you a series of pictures. You'll see the picture maybe for, 20 seconds. Make a little table somewhere on your paper with one column that is ones, 1 at the top, and the other column is 2. 1 is safe, 2 is dangerous. And just check. I'm going to show you 7 pictures. For each one, check, did this feel safe or did this feel dangerous? We'll do it quietly, and then we'll do a little bit of processing around this. Safe or dangerous? This is the first picture. 1 safe, 2 is dangerous. One is safe, 2 is dangerous. Safe or dangerous? One is safe, 2 is dangerous. And then tally them up. How many safes and how many dangerous do you have? Do you have only 1 that's safe? Raise your hand. 2 that's safe, 3 that's safe, 4 that's safe, 5, 6. So, what do we conclude? These are fairly innocuous visual stimuli, but something inside you has knowledge and a reaction. For some reason, this is the neuroception of your autonomic nervous system doing what it's supposed to do. I would like you to pick a picture that made you safe and talk with your neighbor. Why did it feel safe? What could change in the picture to make it unsafe? That's a hard question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And then I'm going to have you come back and share either something that you said or something that your neighbor said. Pick a picture that made you feel safe. Why did it feel safe? And what could change to make it unsafe?
Almost the city was kind of, depends where I am. If I'm in a car, I'm safe. If I'm walking at night in the city, it depends on what part of the city. So nothing is really strong. How about you? one else is up yet. Storming down the stairs. What picture is
together. I'd love to hear from as many people as want to talk. This is one of my favorite things to do, actually, because it's just really interesting what it reveals about each of us and our unique visions of the world. What was a picture that made you safe and why?
I mean, can a teddy bear be unsafe?
Can a teddy bear be unsafe? Maybe if it has a camera in it. Great question. You don't like the way this one looks at you? Is there a doctor in the house? What else? What? Yeah. The teddy bear makes you feel extremely safe. Is there any way it could be changed to make it unsafe? That's true.
It was commonly, they were commonly used as all sorts of kids' toys for IEDs in some war zones.
There you go. That's unbelievably unsafe. Maximum unsafety.
So your peers made fun of you for having a teddy bear.
If your parents made fun of you for having a teddy bear, absolutely. Peers, I'm sorry. Probably either way, but peers even more.
If there was a car hurtling toward the teddy
Sorry.
bear.
If there was a car hurtling towards the teddy bear, absolutely. What else?
I
Nice, thank you. It's one of my
The
favorites.
blossoms are definitely safe.
It's really a beautiful picture, isn't it? The blossoms are very safe. The blue of the sky, the beauty of that image feels very safe.
Unless you have allergies.
Unless you have allergies. Indeed. So true. I couldn't decide how much allergy medicine to bring. But actually, I haven't any problems, so I'm super grateful. What else?
The one that makes me feel the most safe by a mile out of all of these is the one in the top right, because I love the outdoors and I love being in the woods.
There you go. Indeed.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I noticed that you didn't have a slot for anyone to find all 7 pictures safe. Are you assume that?
I could have done that. I think I just got tired of writing on the slide.
All the pictures are safe?
Do you? Yeah, did anyone have all of them be safe?
The same picture to be unsafe?
The one that makes me feel the most unsafe is bottom center. That is
The-
not where I want to be.
Yeah, I wondered about that for the one with the fist in the air and there's thousands of people. What else came us?
I
The
think our initial reaction here was that the top right one looks safe because it was pretty.
yes,
And then we said, oh, but we're not comfortable in the mountains. I said, if a friend took me into a fir forest and I could just sit there and listen to the birds, I would
Yes.
feel very safe. But I had a nephew lost in the Swiss Alps, and so the Swiss Alps will never feel safe
yes.
to me.
So context matters maximally. Experience matters maximally. I feel like it's really easy when you work with somebody who has hurt or been hurt to make judgments about what they should see as being acceptable, okay, safe. And it matters. You don't have to be a trauma survivor for this to matter. It matters why certain things feel safe and other things don't. I did this one time with a young man who was African American and lived in the inner city. And I don't think I had I did have he didn't feel safe anywhere. Now, he also happens to be not straight. He's LGBTQIA. And in the city that he's from, he's in danger when he walks out his door, that the rest of us would not be in danger over. So whatever you feel about whether or not someone, like any of that's okay or not okay, how we are, what our life experiences have been, what our context has been, a teddy bear that could be a bomb, it matters. And it's a place that's worth being curious about with your spouse, with your kids, with any client that you're working with. It is really easy for me to assume that you are wearing the same lenses that I do. And that's not true. And that's part of why I love this. And actually, I've done this 4 or 5 times, but there were so many other things that had to be done that we couldn't unpack it at all. We just said safe, dangerous. So thank you, because you guys let me unpack. It's lovely. Yes.
The two that stood out to me related to that are the forest and the city street, because there's, whether you're urban or rural, can make a big difference.
Huge.
Like there's a lot of city kids that are terrified of nature because
Yep.
they haven't experienced it and they've heard about the dangers of nature.
Yep.
And then those of us from the country think that's really peaceful. And the reverse is true for that city street, and crime.
That's right.
And other things, and dangers of the city,
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, it will all matter depending on what situation each
That's right.
Every one of those pictures could feel safe to somebody.
Correct.
I've heard of it.
Yep.
There's a big car guy that grew up under the street lights. He was homeless, but then got into prison. He went out to a farm someplace. They took him out there where everything was nice and calm around there. He loved everything until it got dark.
Yes.
Never seen darkness in his life. And he was totally freaking out.
Terrified.
Until the guy gave him a flashlight and he was okay.
I love that story. Thank you. And yes, what I have seen when I've done this other times, people that are more people of the land, there's a lot higher likelihood that the city streets will feel dangerous and the natural, and so also the protest, being around 50,000 people, and then the natural scenes feel like that's where I belong. Yes, ma'am.
The cup of coffee to me feels safe and loved because my hubby brings me my first cup of coffee to bed almost every morning.
No.
It doesn't matter whether it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock,
No.
5 o'clock. And that to me feels like everything's going to be okay.
So beautiful. Thank you. Quite lovely.
I felt like the city was safe, not because I liked the city, but in the summers I would go to stay with my dad in Dallas, and that felt
Big city.
very frightening to me. Until it was late at night and all the cars were gone off the streets, and there was no one there, and then I felt like, oh, this is home.
That's amazing. Right? So there's radical contrast, right? From it's dangerous simply because it's the city to it's comfortable when it's the city and quiet. Delightful. Thank you. Any more?
I'm just curious on the cup of coffee, that felt safe to me.
Yeah.
But it would maybe depend if there was someone sitting on the other side of the table, that would heavily impact whether that
Your sense.
scenario is safer.
Yeah. So the picture of the coffee cup, if somebody was sitting on the other side of the table, that would distinctively change potentially your response. Yes.
Not drink coffee, I was picturing tea, and I thought, yeah, this coffee was safe. And then Angela said, but it would depend on who else
Was there.
coffee with you.
Yes. Right? So the stories of our lives and our experiences and our longings and the things also that meet us and make us feel whole, all of that stuff kind of gets revealed just a little bit in this kind of an exercise. Did you have a comment in the back? No.
I was just going to say that the mob, it's frightening to me, but if I would visualize these are people, Jesus worshipers,
Right.
who are saying, we give our lives to you, Lord.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it feels like
Absolutely. Context matters a lot. And maybe even more than we normally give it credit for. Any more? We are up for a 15-minute break. So that puts us back in here at 2:40. All right. Take a break, get some coffee if you need it. Thank you so much. You're an amazing audience.